Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this live chat, I'd like to talk about how the globalists have methodically, systematically, and ruthlessly undermined every single Western institution. Institutions are built up of many hundreds of years and were built up organically and with the consent of the people. All these institutions have been undermined, destroyed, infiltrated, and every last drop of trust and faith that we had in these institutions, they were our institutions. We built them up. Our people had built them. Our people had created them and had infused them with the trust and the faith that you give to the sort of things you create and that serve you, as in serve the people. The globalists have gone here because that's been the point of our maximum trust, our maximum belief, our maximum faith. They've gone there first, and that's where they've come and attacked us. And one by one, every single one of these institutions, whether it be the museum, whether it be the library, whether it be government, whether it be law courts, the public service, including the police, and even now the armed forces, they've gone to them to turn them against the white Western population, and they've done that. I think in that quest they've been largely successful. And but just consider this: we trusted and had faith in all of these institutions, our elected representatives, but the globalists got to all of them. And we can't believe it. Even now, I struggle to get my head around it. All of these safeguards, all of these institutions built up over hundreds, if not thousands of years of Western culture and development, all of these have been taken away. Every last bastion, every line of defense, everything that was meant to guarantee our freedoms and was meant to guarantee our liberties, and guarantee the Western populace a seat at the table of power through the vote and through the ballot box, through the rule of law, through a due legal process. Pretty much all of this is gone. They've managed to take it all. Even the National Office of the National Trust. Now, it's not just in Australia or just in America. Every Western country, particularly the English-speaking ones, but every Western country has had the same type of penetration. So it's clearly a plan. It's not just casual accident here and there. This is how the globalists have gone about it, and they've sought to remove every last drop of trust and faith that we have in these institutions that were there for our protection and to protect our liberties and freedoms. That they've taken it all away. So we need to accept that, and we need to realise that if we're going to do something about it, and we should, if we're going to do something about it, then we have to come at it from a different angle. Our current elected representatives, the major parties, they're pretty much all of them owned by the globalists. In fact, Trump would be one of the few that wasn't completely owned by the globalists, which is why, of course, they did everything they could to undermine him. And by the way, to undermine the office of president. The collateral damage just from that, from undermining the office of president, of undermining everything the president attempted to do, the collateral damage from that in the faith in the office and the precedent is created by rogue idiot generals running off and deciding, gee, I don't like the politics of the sitting president, so I'll just go off and make other arrangements because I fucking feel like it. That sort of stuff. That type of collateral damage has caused untold damage to the body politic and the structure of politics and power and its exercising in the United States and indeed across the Western world. And it's made countries like China look and think, well, those Americans, they couldn't organise a fucking brothel or something. They're useless. They can't do anything. We can ride roughshod over them anytime we choose. That's a byproduct and some of the collateral damage there. So how do we take back the people I'm talking about here, the citizenry? How do we take back our seat at the table of power? Because the globalists decide we're not sharing power with you white folks. We'll either neutralise you, we'll crush you, we'll dilute you, but we're not fucking sharing power with you. You're out of the game, guys. You'll do what the fuck we tell you to do. That's where it's at now, and we need to get back that seat at the table through proper legal means. That still has to be possible. We still have to believe that's possible, and not like the French Revolution, with people being randomly grabbed and done away with. but the people who have broken the law, whether it be generals in the army or goons in the body politic or anything like that, they must be brought before a properly constituted court of law, impartial, independent, with rules of evidence, due legal process. They must have the very best representation, these people. But if they're found guilty, they go and do time, and that's how it should be in a court of law. I think there's a few things, and this is only my view, of course, but I think there's a few things we can do. We know that the major political parties are owned by the globalists. There are probably some who are disaffected and not happy with it, but they think there's no other options. Maybe another political party could be created from those disaffected ones, but I think in the entire American Congress there may only be, I doubt there'd even be 100 disaffected politicians there that could possibly form another party. If they tried to do that, then the globalists would make sure the CIA and the FBI infiltrate them, and Asian provocateurs will create bullshit incidents. There'll be propaganda about Nazis. I mean, you know the playbook. You know, they do the same playbook every time. So it's not impossible, but the disaffected politicians maybe form another party, and that could be built on. But there would have to be tremendous discipline and focus on making sure that, well, that they achieve office, of course, and that they deliver to the people the place at the table that they once had, and that was taken away, stolen. Let's call it what it is, stolen from them. So that's a possibility. I think the trade unions have to reinvent themselves as protectors of the workers. That will effectively neutralise a lot of the globalist objectives. Now, I've actually got no problem with globalisation as a theory. Maybe it's like communism or socialism. It kind of doesn't work in practice. But I've got no problem about nations trading freely and playing to their own strengths and expertise. And I've got no problem with properly skilled, not peasants from third world countries, but properly skilled migrants moving around the world for work if those skills are needed. And there has to be proper controls there. I've got no problem with that. So there's a lot of things that the globalists want they could still get. They've just got to go about it differently. But right now they think we're in control. You got the rest of you can all fuck off. We're doing it. It's happening our way and our way alone. And they've got to be brought back to the table. No, it's not happening your way. You will do it with the consent of the people. That's how it's going to work. It won't work another way. It has to be that. So we have to find means of getting them to the table for that, or indeed they become crushed. And I'd rather not have that happen. I'd rather the power sharing of how it used to be is brought back to the centre stage, which is sharing power with the people, and making sure that everyone gets a piece of that cake at the table by agreement, by consent, and with the consent of the government. Absolutely paramount. So I think unions have a role to play. They need to dust themselves off and reinvent themselves and start pulling some muscle here. You don't talk to us at the table, we'll shut you down. I'd rather it didn't get to that, but it's already there. In fact, it may already have passed that point. So I think that's needed to, and the next thing from that is from that grassroots level, maybe try and structure another political party that is another force in politics. And this requires, of course, major reform on things like lobbyists and political donations and things like that. The body politic, the courts, all these things must be completely independent. They cannot be owned, corrupted, or funded by the likes of Open Society, George Soros, and sort of thing. They must be independent. They are there to serve the people. Another thing that's concerned me recently, we've seen it in the United States with generals just ignoring the orders of the president, the legally elected commander-in-chief. Also, I'm noticing in Australia and elsewhere that the brutality of police when they're putting down people who are protesting COVID lockdowns. Now, these COVID lockdowns, I'd question the legality of them as much that these politicians are hiding behind emergency powers that were meant to be for a pandemic. There was no pandemic, therefore the emergency powers, in my view, are invalid. Now, we have to get to a situation where if these emergency decrees that are being issued, such as you're not allowed to protest COVID, but if you want to do Black Lives Matter protests, that's fine. If you want to do climate change protests, that's also fine. You just can't protest the COVID lockdowns. And then I've got a problem with that. That's clearly the rule of law is no longer applying. It's arbitrary law under the diktats of executive decrees hiding behind emergency orders that are not legitimate, in my view, not legitimate in the first place. So we need to revisit things like what emergency orders are and decrees and the legality of those. Now, police, if they fire, whether it be rubber bullets or anything else, fire upon a protesting crowd, or where the army is effectively encouraged, as we can see in the US. In my belief, the army is effectively going to be used as a tool to suppress white dissent, uniquely suppress white dissent. You don't agree with globalisation, we'll call out the army on you. We'll get those guys to point guns at you. Now that is beyond the pale. It's completely unacceptable, and it is beyond, in my view, it's beyond the purview of the body politic to take that action purely in support of an ideological issue, which is, of course, the forcing of globalisation on the people without their consent. So these are some things we need to do, but put your thinking hats on. Some things that cannot be tampered with: the sanctity of the vote, the rule of law, and due legal process in independent courts of law. These things are not negotiable, and I believe we have to find means to ensure that these things are brought back onto centre stage, and that we, the white people of the West, have a seat at that decision-making table. That's my view. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining.